Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamerspro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. So one of the biggest talking points in the NBA right now, apart from the NBA the NBA off-season free agency players being traded up and down. People are still talking about Bronny James being drafted by the Lakers as the 55th pick. Now, one person that we didn't get a chance to hear from was Rob Parker from The Odd Couple with himself and Chris Broussard, one of my favorite shows on Fox Sports Radio. I think probably Rob had off the last week because I didn't see him, and he had various people filling in for him during his time off. So when he came back, he was touching on a lot of things. He talked about the Paul George move, where he felt that the Clippers should have moved. No, I think that was Chris Broussard, but they talked about the idea of the Clippers moving off of Kawhi Leonard instead. They spoke about that. They spoke about Klay Thompson as well, deciding not to stay with the Warriors. But then they moved on to the Bronny James thing, right? And we had heard from everyone, but the person we hadn't heard from was Rob Parker. So I clicked on the show. Now, if you know anything about Rob, he's opinionated. He's not afraid to say what he thinks. And that's one of the things we like about him. Agree or disagree with him. That's just one of the things we like about him. So in this particular episode, they're talking about Bronny James. And Rob Parker essentially begins to say that how he hated the fact that the Lakers did this, but he gave a good reason. And the reason is, and I'm going to explain it later, is he said this is not good for sports, right? So what we want to do now is want to play exactly what Rob Parker had to say. I want you guys to listen to it in its entirety because Chris Broussard actually pushes back on him from various occasions, and then Rob Parker continues to explain his point. So I want you guys to listen to that in its entirety, and I'm going to come back and react to what they had to say. Take a listen to these gentlemen here.
I think this is the worst decision that's ever happened in professional sports. And I'm dead serious when I say that. The worst.
By a team,
not just
player?
All around. Everybody involved in this, because it changes what the essence of the game has always been, which is about competition. Chris, this is what we've always talked about. And the reason why you have an NFL where you have essentially 99% of the owners are white, and yet the league is 70% black. Meritocracy is what allowed this to be the case. They didn't go out and just fill their teams with people who look like them because they own the team and said, I don't care, I'm going to do what I want to do and no one can tell me because I own the team. It was about the best people went out there, played the game, and the people who deserve to get jobs got jobs. I heard a lot of people throw around nepotism. And there's plenty of nepotism, and I've been critical of.
I was one that threw it around.
Yeah, I've plenty. And I've thrown out nepotism. Chris, it's wrong. We've seen it, especially in the front office.
But it ain't staffs, front office,
right.
All that.
But it ain't the same as what we've seen here as far as on the field. Someone would have to show me on the field where some guy got his son a spot on a team, or some owner put his nephew on. I'll just take the last spot on the roster. It doesn't matter. I want you to be on the team because I own the team. And that's the part, I think, when LeBron looks at his legacy, that he'll be leaving the sport in a worse place than when he got here. And what I mean is he's opened up a Pandora's box now to where I don't know how you tell people not to do what he just did, right? His kid, by all of the scouts, not Rob Parker as a scout, all the scouts, smaller guard Chris, he didn't have a great year in college, all this thing. He might have made it. He might have been able to be on a team as a non-drafted player and worked his way through and all that, right? Could have. But this was like, no, he's coming to the Lakers. Get out of the way. Don't draft him. This is all about LeBron making this happen. I remember when Tim Tebow went down to Jacksonville. People were like, what? to play a position he had never played. He was an older player, but Urban Meyer, that's my next door neighbor. People weren't with it. People throw out the Dallas Cowboys. Chris, it's filled with nepotism. He has all of his kids in the front office. But I could justify a family business where you're hiring people in your family more so than I can on a team or
Why?
on a because
it's still nepotism.
No, and I'm not saying I'm against nepotism, but I'm talking. I'm against nepotism. What I'm saying is, when you play on the field, that is supposed to be based on your merit, your ability, and that's where someone would have to show me where owners have done this in the past, because I can't find it. I can't find where they put somebody on a team because they own the team or they wanted to help out their kid.
Tebow was essentially nepotism.
No, but he didn't make the team. No,
but he got a tryout.
But I'm talking about Andy Reid's kids, Bill Belichick's kids. Did he put them on a team, or did he go, hey, you can work your way up?
Well, they would get broken in half.
Right.
I mean, they're not even remotely like here's where I disagree with you overall. And there are players. It's not just front office and coaching staff where we've seen this. Thanasis Antetokounmpo. Think he's much of a player?
No. But wait a minute. The difference,
he's on the Bucks.
Okay, but was he? Well, who drafted him?
I don't know who drafted him, but he's got a contract now with the Bucks because Giannis is on the Bucks.
No, but the Knicks drafted him, and let me say this, Chris. I'm glad you brought that up. That came after Giannis's first year when he averaged 6 points and 4 rebounds. So it wasn't as if he was a big star and they knew it. Giannis didn't even blossom yet when the Knicks drafted his brother. So that's not where
He's
Giannis
still
got
on the team.
No, but I'm talking about he was drafted originally by the Knicks after Giannis didn't have a big year. So Giannis had no play. He couldn't tell the Knicks to draft his brother. He averaged 6 points his rookie year.
It's possible that Bronny would have got drafted. Because here's the thing.
I don't believe it.
I mean, I'm told 4 teams were interested.
So you heard what Rob Parker had to say. His basic point, and one of the points that he brought up, was the fact that sports is supposed to be about merit. Meaning, because if you listen carefully, Chris Broussard was giving him various examples of where nepotism has taken place within all of sports, NFL, in the NBA. But what Rob was saying was this. He said, for instance, the owner of the most valuable sports franchise in the world, in the Dallas Cowboys, if Jerry Jones decides to give his kids positions within the organization, yes, that is nepotism, and they just got those positions because their father owns the team. He said that, but in sports is supposed to be based off of the merit, based off of the fact that, look, your abilities are getting you to wherever place you're going to be in your career. It should be based on your abilities, your accomplishments, whatever it is. That should ultimately determine how far you go in your career, or at the very least, whether or not you get drafted into the NBA. And that is a fundamental difference, because sports seems to be one of those things that is a meritocracy, right? You can't talk your way into having great results or great production. The results speak for themselves. That's an interesting point. But then, if you listen carefully, Chris Broussard then pushed back. He said, but look at the situation with the Milwaukee Bucks and Thanasis Antetokounmpo, Giannis Antetokounmpo's brother. And then Rob Parker brought up another good point, which was, he was like, I understand what you're saying, but the issue I'm having with your argument, or at least this example, is that Thanasis was already drafted before he got to the Milwaukee Bucks. So he already made it into the NBA. Now, some people say, well, he's Giannis Antetokounmpo's brother with the name, whatever. Regardless of that, you still got to be good enough. You still got to be good enough. And he was already on an NBA team. In the case of Bronny, he was never on any other NBA team. And a lot of people speculated that Bronny may have not been ready for this particular draft. Now, is this saying that we know what Bronny's going to turn into because of his size? No, we don't know. Look at Isaiah Thomas, right? Not the Hall of Famer, but the other Isaiah Thomas. He came into the NBA. At his size, he was doing amazing things. You saw what he was doing for the Boston Celtics, and he was even shorter, or he is even shorter than Bronny James. So no one is putting a cap on Bronny's possibilities going into the future. However, I think the main point that Rob Parker was speaking to was sports is supposed to be based on merit. And he is not certain that this situation had anything to do with merit. Rob Parker made his return back into the sports media space. I think he was away for about a week or so because I hadn't been hearing him on Fox Sports Radio. But he made his return, I think, yesterday. And one of the shows that they discussed, himself and Chris Broussard, was this story surrounding the Lakers drafting LeBron's first son, Bronny James. And it's brought in a mixed bag of emotions and opinions. Some people are for it. Some people are against it. I know there's some people that are pro the nepotism. Some people are against it, right? I heard you can hear people like Adrian Wojnarowski, Stephen A. Smith, I think Ryan Clark. They're all for it. If you listen to other people like Bomani Jones and others, they're against it, right? Everyone has a different opinion. So as I was listening to Rob Parker discuss this, they got to a particular point in the conversation between himself and Chris Broussard. And he revealed some information that I was unaware of, right? And the information essentially was, Rob Parker said that he had spent some time talking to various other former NBA players. And what he said was a lot of former NBA players are upset that LeBron forced the Lakers to draft his son, Bronny James, for the simple reason that they wanted to make headlines. And I was like, wow, we really got to touch on this. So what we want to do now is we want to play what Rob Parker had to say. I want you guys to listen to it. It's not that long. Listen to what he had to say. And then we're going to come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to what Rob had to say here.
The whole process feels bad, doesn't feel good. I feel bad for Bronny from the standpoint of where people will look at him, where if this was on his own merit, Chris, and I'm saying on his own merit, and anybody drafted him and he worked his way through or whatever worked through it was, I think he would have had a better situation or a better chance without having people wear this on him, that the only reason he's there is his dad. And people aren't going to say it. A lot of people aren't going to say it publicly because LeBron still has power and has a big name and a lot of guys. But I talked to a lot of former players who just to me said that this doesn't feel right on the way that this was handled, all the conversation about it. Everybody knew. I told you this months ago that he was going to the Lakers. There was no doubt in my mind at all.
We both said, yeah,
how this was going to play out. And that's the part that I'm talking about when I look at the down the road and the way we look at it. Did Bronny get in strictly? And we don't. And you know, you're guessing. I'm guessing. You think maybe it was just all on Bronny and it was all merited and there's nothing funny about it.
Definitely nepotism played a role.
Okay,
there is no question about it.
So,
yeah,
I'm not okay.
But my thing is, I don't want to hear the nepotism card played when people, and maybe you, like you said you've been critical. That's fine. But I don't want to hear it from people that haven't said anything about the nepotism that is rampant in professional sports. Front office is a performance business as well. Coaching staff is a performance business as well. And if Rob, you know the league and the NFL and Major League Baseball, nepotism is rampant. Rampant. And so I don't want to hear when it's, a player flexed his muscles. Well, the owners and the GMs been flexing their muscles left and right.
I disagree.
What made Steve Belichick qualified to be a defensive coach with the Patriots? He's out of the league now. Now he's coaching in college.
Yeah, the difference here is when we talk about earning a spot on the roster and players knowing whether or not someone truly belongs on a team. And that's the difference here. And I'm with you. I said it before, and I've said it before. Who's the coach I always talk about with the Chiefs? Who was the golf player? I talk about
Todd,
it. Todd Haley?
Todd Haley. Todd Hayes.
I've said it a million times, Chris. You've heard me on this show.
That's an example. And
I
I'm
know.
like, look, if y'all going to cut out nepotism, then cut it out then.
Yeah.
So you heard what he had to say about former NBA players being upset with it. I don't think it's just former NBA players. I think there are players in every single sport that are not happy with this. As I said before, there's some that are all for it, right? And I gave you some examples of people that see absolutely nothing wrong with this. Where do I land on this? Look, as a parent, and I'm sure some of you watching this show are also parents, you want the best for your kids, right? You want the best for your kids. You want to ensure that you give them every opportunity that you can, and they have a leg up in life if they can, right? To go on and live a better life than you. I think that's what all parents want. So a lot of us feel that way. However, there's some of us out here that also want our kids to earn it. Now, what do I mean by that? Earning it in the sense that, look, you put in the work and you deserve to be here. You deserve to be here. Now, coming from my culture as Igbos, it really comes down to the parent. But generally, Igbos are very industrious people, right? Most of them are entrepreneurs. Most of them. If I can look at my family now, I can tell you they're multiple millionaires. I'm not talking about like me. I'm talking about like uncles. Multiple guys. There are multiple guys that have business. Multiple. It's more than 5, right? It's a lot because they're very industrious people. And in our culture, it's like some of them may come from wealthy homes, but that doesn't mean you're promised a damn thing. You got to go out there and earn it. If you listen to a player like Shaq reminds me of an Igbo dad. Shaq is like, look, I'm rich. Ain't no we rich. I'm rich. You got to go out there and earn it. Now, I can give you some stipends or whatever allowance, but don't be expecting nothing remarkable from me. You got to go out there and earn it. Whereas there are other people, whether or not their kids are qualified or not, they're going to do every single thing that they can to ensure they have the best seat in life. So really, it all comes down to how you see and how you view parenting. Here's what I think. I think that a kid will have more satisfaction for whatever they earn if they 100% earned it, number one. Number two, they will respect that thing more. But if you just simply give it to them or use your connections to open all the doors in life, then that thing that they got, they may not appreciate it because they themselves didn't really have to sweat for it. And that's the difference. There's a difference between spending daddy's money that he gave to you versus your money that you earned. It's two totally different things. Why? Because if you're spending daddy's money, you may not think twice. You may not think twice. But if you're spending your own money, before you spend it frivolously, you'll think, damn, I actually have to work hard to make that money. So I got to think twice before I spend it. Ultimately, this comes down to how we as people view the world. I'm not saying one person is right or the other person is wrong. It just comes down to your worldview. And really, there's no right answer in all of this. Really. It all depends on how you see things. And I'm no one to sit up here and tell a parent how to raise their child. It's up to them. If LeBron thought that he was doing the best for his kids as a father, and that's the way he saw it, 100% power to him. I have no right to tell him how to raise his children. All we're doing is discussing it because these are public figures and it relates to basketball and sports and all of that. That's why we're discussing it. It has nothing, no one is here saying he should have done this or not. It's up to him. It's his children. He can do whatever. If LeBron wants to give his kids $3 million a month, it is his money. He can do whatever the hell he wants to do, right? I believe everyone has the right to their own opinion. They can live their life the way that they want to see it. So these are just my thoughts on it. Yesterday, we did a show about a recent sit down that Shannon Sharpe had on Cam Newton's podcast. And during this sit down, they talked about a bunch of things. They talked about life, they talked about dating, they talked about a bunch of things. But inevitably, Cam Newton was going to ask him about the infamous fallout between himself and Skip Bayless, right? And when it came time for Shannon Sharpe to respond to Cam Newton's comments, I thought he gave a very, very mature response. And we said this yesterday on yesterday's show. If you didn't see it, just go check it out. We published it yesterday. So what happened? I came across my man Marcellus Wiley, friend of the channel. Marcellus Wiley's a show that he dropped, was it yesterday, on the past 24 hours, reacting to this very audio that we did yesterday. Now, if you know anything about Marcellus is in a very unique position because he's in the independent space. He used to work in big media, and he's a former athlete. So he has a very robust perspective on all of these things. He can speak from an athlete standpoint. He can speak from the independent standpoint. And he can also speak as someone that was working on TV and all of that, right? So that's why whenever we get him on the show, we're like, Marcellus, give us the information, man. Give us the details. Like this is what we want to hear, right? We want to hear the details, right? And a lot of that's what we love, right? So I was listening to him, and he reacted to the comments. But what's interesting was he took us behind the curtains to explain all of the politics that was happening behind the scenes surrounding the fallout between Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe and the network choosing sides and all. And these are things I would not have known had he not said it on his show. So these are the comments that we want to focus in on. So what we want to do now is we want to play exactly what he had to say on his show. I want you guys to listen to it, and then we're going to come back and react to it. Take a listen to that.
Shannon Sharpe is sharp. I mean, this is how you play the game. A ton of maybes in there. Inserted some comments that you know were pointed at Fox management and pointed at Skip Bayless, but did it without getting dirty. That's what's so dope. That's what lets you know he's next level. Respect to him for saying that. The first thing that caught my attention was if somebody else would have said what Skip said, I wouldn't have tripped. I wouldn't have even been mad at it. But Skip said it. Now, my first thought was like, damn. But if you're really cool with somebody and they say something foul, I know why it triggers us. I know because we're so invested in them, they invested in us, they know so much. How you gonna go there? But you ever heard somebody say, don't mix business with pleasure, don't mix business with family, all that stuff? I've always looked at that the opposite way. Like, dog, if we so cool, so close, we supposed to be able to go in here and really give each other the business. Punches, thrown, punches, attack. Let's go. Let's beat each other up so we can sharpen our knives, right? You know how they always say when you play against your brother, you're going to go harder? I always thought that when I was, and this is my mistake, because I'm like Skip more than that. More than Shannon, it sounds like in this moment. If we boys, we going at it. Like you're going to think we hate each other, and we don't. But if we ain't boys, then you're going to think, oh, they cool? Because I'm not going to give you all of me. Because I don't know you like that. Anyway, y'all beat that up in the comments. I just think of it differently. But I understand what Shannon said because he flipped it at the end. He said, because I protected Skip. That's why I was waiting for that protection in that moment. The protection of, I can talk about Tom Brady, the GOAT, and obviously your idol, and you ain't gonna set trip on me. But you did. And when you did, it made me realize, oh, this love ain't mutual like I thought it was. Because either we gonna beat each other up the same, or we gonna chill and sit here and pull punches the same. In practice, we both going 80%. Oh, we both going 100. What we doing? Like we on the same page. And that let Shannon know they weren't on the same page. Now, from that point, woo, Shannon stepped in it. And not him, the situation stepped in it. Because long story short, Skip Bayless was known as the Rainmaker, as he just said, made Stephen A. So, he come to Fox, get all the money, got the most money over there. Everything he wanted, the show, everything Skip wanted, he got. Skip had his own dude appointed to his show. No other show had their own dude appointed. Like everybody else had production staff and workers, employees, but his own dude to make sure I'm a liaison between upstairs and you. Real talk. So Skip got carte blanche, red carpet everywhere he go. And then this show, to make it, Fox was like, all right, Skip, I think it took them 3 interviews or so. They said they kept going, Shannon, Shannon. And Skip kept going, Shannon, Shannon. Fox was kind of like, all right. You want to do it. We trust in you because this is what you do. Skip gets his way. And y'all know what happened as the show started to evolve. Like, Skip got to a point where it seemed like he hit his apex. It seemed like he hit his top point. And Shannon didn't have no ceilings. Lil Wayne, no ceilings. Shannon just kept going and going. And past Skip. Be real. Okay, but here's the problem. Fox got a policy. And Fox's policy started when Chris Carter, if y'all remember Chris Carter, Hall of Famer, bang, bang, and Nick Wright. Remember when Nick Wright first started? Chris Carter, first things first, back in the days. Chris Carter used to come, I mean, he played the big joker almost every argument. Like, bro, what are you talking about? I mean, talking down, undressing them, etc., right? So behind the scenes, it was interpreted from Fox management that they hated each other. Remember, I'm the type, and many others, Skip is the type, and I think Shannon too, to a degree, him with Ocho. Hey, we gonna go there. You gonna think we mad at each other? Nah, we good. Shannon with Stephen A. Oh, they go at it. Oh, we good. So maybe it's just Skip and Shannon never were good because they couldn't go at it the same level. But once that happened with Chris Carter and it happened with Nick Wright, oh, Fox is going to be like, we making choices around him.
So you heard what Marcellus had to say. He gave an insight that I did not even consider. And the insight he gave was where the network stood in all of this, meaning the issues between Shannon and Skip. If you guys remember, Skip was the one that recruited Shannon Sharpe to FS1. We remember that. Which means that Skip had more power at the network, which means that the network was always going to side with Skip Bayless. And I think Shannon Sharpe understood that. And if you go back and listen to the way Shannon was talking and things he was doing, you can pretty much tell. This is what I understood about Shannon Sharpe. He may see the show, I don't know. Okay, if Shannon Sharpe sees the show, which I 100% doubt, but if he does see the show, I said it, 2 years ago. You can go back and look at the videos. I said Shannon Sharpe is going to make more money in the next 5 years than he ever did as an NFL player. I said that. We have multiple shows of that. Shannon is great. I disagree with almost every single thing he has to say with the Michael Jordan, LeBron. I think those comments are just ridiculous. I'm not backing off of that. But I always said this. If you go back and listen to Shannon during that period, even when those exchanges took place on TV, if you pay close attention, Shannon always found a way to rein in his emotions. He would always kind of catch himself. Even with the last one with the Tom Brady back and forth when people wanted him. I don't know what did y'all want Shannon Sharpe to do? To reach across the desk and snatch Skip Bayless and punch him? Like that's what y'all wanted Shannon Sharpe to do? That would have made y'all. So you got Shannon Sharpe's best interest in heart and that's what you want him to do? Shannon Sharpe showed great restraint from time to time. But if you go back and look at it, I personally believe, and I don't know this, I believe Shannon was willing to do whatever it took to keep that job. I also know now, we all know now, that it wasn't his decision to leave, which means that Shannon would have found a way to make it work. He would have, and he said it on many occasions. I think another show we produced, he's like, you don't just throw away, you gave the analogy of a marriage. You don't invest all of this and you just throw it away for nothing because you think about all the time and effort and everything that you invested in it. But what I think Shannon was unaware of, and it was something that pissed me off, it really did, and I said it. I don't think Shannon realized how bright his star really was. That was my issue with him. I don't think he realized how bright his star really was. So when Stephen A. Smith said that he was reaching out to him and throwing him a lifeline, I was sitting here, and we have shows about it, saying, who in their right mind wouldn't reach out to Shannon? You would have to be on something. What network wouldn't want Shannon Sharpe? You would have to be crazy. You really would. Who wouldn't want Shannon? So when Stephen A. Smith said, like, I'm throwing you a lifeline, and Shannon Sharpe like, man, appreciate it, bro. I'm looking at Shannon. I'm like, yo, bro. One could make an argument that you are on the level of Stephen A. Smith, quite literally. We could make an argument of that. And thus far, if you combine the independent space versus what he's doing on television, we can make an argument that Shannon Sharpe is the biggest thing in sports. You could legitimately make that argument. Legitimately. Him and Stephen A. Smith in the independent space is nothing to even discuss. Shannon Sharpe is top dog. And then you have the Pat McAfees and a few others. He's the top guy. So I didn't like the fact that he was feeling like, like, man, thank you. Like, bro, no, you are who you are. You are who you are. Back to what Marcellus had to say. If you listen to Marcellus, basically he explained the office politics. The office politics. That, look, FS1 wasn't going to go against Skip Bayless. And he was 100% right. Paul George just recently signed a 4-year max contract with the Philadelphia 76ers of $200 million. Good for him. But as you also know, Paul George for the last, 4 years had been a Los Angeles Clipper, right? And in those 4 seasons, it was just utter disappointment. They only made one Western Conference Finals, but for the most part, it was a total failure. The partnership between himself and Kawhi Leonard. So throughout the offseason, we were hearing towards the end of the playoffs that Paul George and the Clippers were been negotiating, but they couldn't come to an agreement. Clippers wanted to give Paul George 3 years. Paul George wanted 4 years. And ultimately what ended up happening was the Clippers decided that, look, all we got for you is 3 years, right? And if you're not going to take the 3 years, then my friend, you may have to go ahead and kick those rocks. So that's what Paul George did. He kicked a rock that was worth about $200 million. And now he's a Philadelphia 76er and he's on a championship contender. As you guys know, Paul George has a podcast, right? With with 2 of his friends. And Jackie Long and the other friend, Dallas Rutherford. Now, I've seen a bunch of their shows. Dallas Rutherford has made it clear that he is a staunch Paul George supporter. I think on one show I heard him say he only attends Clippers home games if Paul George is playing. If he's not playing, he's not attending. So he's a real friend, right? Real friend. Well, it looks like this morning yesterday he decided to take a shot at the Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. And we got the pictures here from Hoops Alert, who was able to basically screen grab the conversation that he was having on Twitter. So those are the comments that we actually want to get into now. So let's go ahead and get into them now. So this is from Hoops Alert. And if you look at the image, it goes, it's a story. Paul George podcast partner isn't a fan of the Clippers not paying Paul George. Dallas Rutherford, he says, Philly. Another person says, you best turn off them comments. They coming for you. Pause. I'm warning you. And then he responds, huh? LOL. Then he goes, Clipper fans who hate PG, I'm telling you. They hate you and Jackie because of that podcast. Then he goes, Clippers suck anyway. LOL. And then he goes, the switch up is nuts. Wow. And then he responds, it's a joke. But I do think they are crazy for not paying him what they paid Kawhi. Right? So that's what your man had to say there. What are my thoughts? First of all, we all wish we had friends like this, right? I do, but we all wish we had friends like that come out there and just be ready to, defend you no matter what. That's a fantastic thing. So Paul George has a real friend there, right? So that's the first thing. He also said he wishes they paid him like Kawhi. Look, here's the reality. Both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are injury prone. But if they're healthy, 100% healthy, Kawhi is the better player. I don't think anyone disputes that. Even Paul George has said it himself. So Kawhi Leonard being paid more, if we're just looking at it from a talent standpoint, accomplishment standpoint, I think is a no-brainer that the Clippers should pay Kawhi Leonard more money than they paid Paul George. But I get his point. I entirely get his point. To me, I think the Clippers had come to the realization that this group wasn't going to work anymore. I'm also hearing they're going to trade Russell Westbrook. I hope they do, right? I don't think that core players was going to work anymore. And I think the Clippers realize that. I don't see the Clippers winning the championship anytime soon. But at the same hand, I understand Dallas defending his friend because that's what a friend is supposed to do. And Paul George looks to have a good friend in Dallas. So